Welcome back to our channel. They thought a petty HOA fine would make me bow to their power-hungry demands, not knowing they had just picked a fight with the chief of police. But what happens when I uncover their illegal operation targeting our community's hardworking first responders? It's time for the hunter to become the hunted. Welcome to my channel. Comment below where you're watching from. I'll never forget that morning. It started just like any other, but ended up changing our neighborhood forever. As I walked to my car, ready for another day at the police station, I spotted something bright green under my windshield wiper. At first, I thought it was just another takeout menu. But my heart sank when I realized it was an HOA violation notice. $1.79 for improper lawn maintenance. You've got to be kidding me. I stood there, coffee in hand, staring at my lawn. It looked exactly like it had for 15 years, green, healthy, and well-mowed. Sure, maybe it wasn't perfect like a golf course, but it was neat. That's when I heard the distinct click of high heels on the sidewalk. "Good morning," came the voice, sweet but with an edge that made my teeth hurt. Karen Mitchell, our newest HOA board member, was doing her morning inspection with her tablet in hand. "Miss Mitchell," I nodded politely, holding up the notice. "Mind explaining this? My lawn meets all reasonable standards." She barely looked up from her screen. Section 7, Paragraph 3 of the HOA guidelines clearly states that grass height must not exceed 3 inches. "Yours is approximately 3.5, she said, tapping away at her tablet, probably documenting another violation. I took a deep breath. "I've been busy this week with a major case at work. I'll get to it this weekend." "Rules are rules," she chirped, finally looking up. "And you might want to do something about those garden gnomes. They're not on the approved decoration list." My blood boiled. "Those gnomes have been here for over a decade. New board, new rules," she waved her tablet cheerfully. "We're bringing this neighborhood into the modern age. No more tacky decorations lowering property values." She clicked away down the sidewalk, stopping at Sarah's house next. Sarah, an ER nurse, had just finished a grueling night shift. The last thing she needed was Karen's morning harassment. I watched as Karen started taking photos of Sarah's property. Something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about my lawn or my gnomes anymore. In 25 years of law enforcement, I had learned to spot patterns of harassment and abuse of power. Karen wasn't just being strict, she was targeting specific residents. Back in my car, I started scrolling through the neighborhood Facebook group. Complaints about Karen were piling up. Mark, the firefighter on the corner, had been fined for his kid's basketball hoop. The elderly couple across the street had been cited for unapproved rose bushes. Even the local teacher had been fined for parking his car in his own driveway because it was too old and unsightly. I was about to pull out of my driveway when I saw Karen taking more pictures of my gnomes. She didn't know it yet, but she had just made a serious mistake. See, being chief of police had taught me one important thing. Sometimes the biggest crimes aren't the ones that make headlines, but the small injustices that chip away at a community's spirit. As I drove to work, my mind was already forming a plan. Karen thought she had all the power, but she had no idea who she was really dealing with. At work, I reviewed all the evidence I had gathered. Karen had no idea what was coming. In her rush to build her little kingdom of power, she had left a trail of violations that would shock even her supporters on the HOA board. The real question now was timing, when and how to present this information for maximum impact. A text popped up on my phone. It was from one of my sergeants. Karen just submitted a proposal for expanded security measures. Emergency HOA meeting called for tomorrow night. I smiled. The perfect moment had just presented itself. Walking into the HOA meeting, my heart was pounding, but my face remained calm. Karen stood at the front in her designer suit, waving around a stack of papers about her new community safety program. I watched as she talked about hiring more security guards and adding cameras on every street. The room was tired of her rules, but too scared to speak up. When she finished, she asked for votes. I stood up, the weight of my badge giving me strength. "Before we vote," I said, "I think there's something everyone needs to know." Karen's eyes narrowed as I walked to the front. "For those who don't know me, I'm James Mitchell. I've lived here for 15 years, and I'm also the chief of police for our city." The room erupted in whispers. Karen's tablet slipped from her hands. "Over the past 3 months, 47 fines have been issued in our community. 35 of them were given to first responders and essential workers," I continued, pulling out a color-coded map showing the violations. "Notice any pattern?" The board members leaned forward. Mrs. Thompson, our retired school principal, adjusted her glasses. "But that's not all," I went on, pulling out more documents. The security company hired to enforce these citations, Mitchell Security LLC, isn't just unlicensed, it's operating illegally. Karen's brother, the security company owner, stood up, heading for the door. But 2 officers were already stationed outside. Karen jumped to her feet. "This is ridiculous. You can't use police resources for personal vendettas." "You're right," I said calmly. "That's why every piece of evidence I'm presenting came from public records and legal channels." I continued, "And here's the final blow. The security company has been issuing tickets and blocking driveways without legal authority. That's impersonating law enforcement." Karen's perfect mask cracked. "You can't prove anything. I was making this neighborhood better. These people need rules." "Rules apply to everyone," I replied. The room erupted in applause. Mr. Jenkins, the HOA president, called for an emergency vote. The vote was unanimous. Karen wasn't just removed from the board, she was banned from ever serving again. As Karen stormed out, tears of rage in her eyes, she shouted, "This isn't over." But looking at our united neighbors, I knew it was. The next morning, I drove past Karen's house. A moving truck was already in the driveway, and her brother's security vehicles were gone, replaced by legitimate patrol cars, ensuring the moving company had the proper permits. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. People came out again, kids played without fear of citations, and Mrs. Thompson organized a community barbecue. But the best moment came a week later. Sarah's daughter ran up to me, holding a handmade card. Inside was a crayon drawing of me in my uniform, standing in front of a rainbow-colored house. The message read, "Thank you for making our neighborhood happy again." That card sits on my desk at the station, a reminder that sometimes the most important police work happens right at home. Our community learned a valuable lesson. It's not about having power, it's about how you use it. As for Karen, last I heard, she tried to join another HOA board in a neighboring town, but somehow, they'd already heard all about her.